All right, I think we're set. Ben, you ready? Ben, you ready? Josh, you good? Ed, you in good shape? All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Tuckfield. I am the chairman of the Macomb Township Zoning Board of Appeals, and I'm calling this regularly scheduled meeting on Thursday, July the 3rd at 6:30 p.m. to order. That is the first item on our agenda. The second is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand with me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good. Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. Piper.
Here.
Mr. Mazzara.
Here.
Mr. DeCoster.
Here.
Mr. DeBruin is here. Mr. Tuckfield.
Here.
All regular members present.
All right, we have a quorum. That's all regularly scheduled members, so that is not something we have to consider this evening. The next item on our agenda is to address any conflicts of interest. At this time, we will again call the roll call. If any members have a conflict on our item this evening, please signify by saying yes. If you have no conflict, please signify by saying no. Mr. Bruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeCoster.
No.
Mr. Piper.
No.
Mr. Mazzara.
No.
I do not have any. Mr. Tuckfield.
No.
No.
All right, having stated no conflicts, we will proceed on to the approval of the agenda, which is item 5. Is there any motions or discussions on item 5?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Mr. Mazzara, supported by Mr. DeCoster to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. That motion carries and the agenda is adopted as presented. The next item is the approval of the previous meeting minutes. That will be for the June 5th, 2025 ZBA meeting. Is there any comments, corrections, or motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from Thursday, June 5th, 2025.
All right, motion by Mr. DeCoster. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Supported by Mr. Piper. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. That motion passes and the previous meeting minutes are adopted. Or approved, actually. I'm not sure the correct terminology, but we'll keep moving. Item 7 is old business. Mr. Box, I don't believe we have any old business this evening.
Not this evening.
All right, we'll move on then to item 8, which is new business. This is a variance request from section 14-29. This is a request to double fence 48 feet of a rear yard. This would be for permanent parcel 0836130016. And Mr. Box, could you please take us through the township's presentation on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. As you mentioned, the property is on Point Drive in the Ridge Point subdivision. That would be south of 21 Mile and west of Fairchild. You see outlined here on the screen behind you the property in question. And they're seeking a variance this evening to install a fence which would be directly adjacent to a neighboring fence, otherwise known as double fencing. And what the ordinance states is that no fence may be erected closer than 3.5 feet to any other fence. So the existing conditions, as you see on the left-hand side of the screen there, the neighbor behind them already has a chain link fence installed, and the property highlighted in blue is seeking to install a privacy fence. The area where the two overlap, actually I thought it was the yellow area, but it's a little bit less than that. The yellow area is a little bit longer than it needs to be, but that's the area where the double fencing would occur. It's not the entire rear yard, but a portion of that where they're seeking the double fencing variance this evening. And so you see that here on their submittal. It's about 48 feet according to this drawing by their contractor. So just to point out, again, I mentioned that the double fencing is prohibited in the ordinance. This is in the Code of Ordinance, not the zoning ordinance. The code does allow, not everything in the Code of Ordinance can come to the ZBA unless it's specifically called out. This one does allow to come to the ZBA for a variance. As indicated on the top part, it's again, it has to, double fencing is not allowed. It's strictly prohibited. It must be 3.5 feet away. And even if it is 3.5 feet away, something that close actually requires the building official to approve it, even if they were to get the variance as well. However, much like the sign exceptions, there's some different criteria here. A practical difficulty still must be found. And in addition to that, no variance shall be granted unless the zoning board of appeals finds that all three of these items are true. That being that there are no special circumstances or conditions affecting the situation such that a strict application of the provisions of this article would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of his property. The variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the substantial property right of the applicant, and that the granting of the variance will not be unduly detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the township. So again, you must find a practical difficulty and find that all three of those things are true. Our departments did look at this. Assessing had no assessing-related objections. Building noted that it does not create any building code issues, but has a potential to create a maintenance issue with the small gap that would be in between the fence. Fire had no fire-related objection. Public Works did not provide any comments. Engineering noted that there are no unique conditions for this lot that warrant a practical difficulty restricting the petitioner from meeting the double fencing requirement setback of 3.5 feet outlined in Article 14-27 of the Township Ordinance. That being said, in general, it does not pose any engineering-related concerns. The Planning Department indicated that a compliant fence could be installed, meaning 3.5 feet away from the existing chain link fence could be installed. There's nothing prohibiting them from doing that. They have not demonstrated a practical difficulty. Additionally, we'd like to point out that a landscaping option could work here. In the letter by the applicant, this is related to a dog with some sensitivities to other animals, and thus the need for the privacy fence. It's possible to have landscaping that would prevent, visible abilities of the dog to see other animals in the area. In general, as indicated in your packet, staff would not support this. Creating a double fence as requested creates maintenance issues, as the building department pointed out. It can create some unsightly conditions, as you see here. These are some example pictures from a property in the township where this existed from many, many years ago. And essentially, it's the staff's opinion that the maintenance that becomes an issue and the plants that grow up between the fences is essentially only visible to the side that has the correct fence already, and therefore they would be unduly harmed by the allowing of the double fencing. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Box. Is there any questions or comments from the board for Mr. Box?
I just have one.
Go ahead, Mr. DeCosta.
The existing fence, was a permit pulled for the property behind? We know it's their fence.
Correct. The existing fence is around that entire yard. A permit was pulled, and that's a good point. I was notified by the building department earlier this week that the property in question that is seeking the double fencing has installed all of the rest of the fencing, just not the area of the double fence. However, no permit was pulled for that.
All right, thank you, Mr. DeCosta. Anyone else? One thing I did just want to mention before I go into the next portion, I did visit this property Monday, I think. I talked to Mr. Platts briefly, asked his permission to go in the rear yard. We did not discuss anything else, but just want to make sure I disclose that I was there, and he was kind enough to let me see the property in person, which I appreciate. That being said, that would be the next item on our routine here, and that would be, we'd be asking the petitioner to come up to the microphone in the center. Feel free to pull another chair up there if you'd like. State your name and address for the record, and give any comments that you have on this item.
Corinne Hillman, 24072 Point Drive.
Tyler Platts and same address, 24072.
So with comments regarding the landscaping, we have discussed the different landscaping and potential for harm to the dog with the reactivity and sensitivity issues to the sounds, that he would end up harming himself more if different landscaping options were taken. So fencing, using a privacy fence, is a less harmful option for him. In regards to the permit portion, there was miscommunication with our contractor regarding that portion, where we were under the belief that they were pulling the permit to have the work completed, and that one was pulled to have the lines painted into the yard for the water lines and everything. And then our contractor discussed with a Matt, I'm not sure what his last name was, and we have had a permit pulled and paid for since that date. So I'm not sure when the information was pulled originally, but a permit does currently exist for the existing fence.
Anything
I want
else?
to say the other part too, with Discount Fence Company, the contractor, they also said they can work with us with,
I could, sorry, sir, if you can pull the
Yeah, I'm
mic just a sec.
sorry,
Need
sorry.
to make sure it's on the record.
So Discount Fence Company, her, Jennifer is the owner, she said she can work with us with putting something underneath that area on our property where the fence would go, where there's the double fence, whether it be some sort of rock or tile or anything underneath. She said she can fit it in and work with the fence posts, along with, I don't remember the actual height, but she said she can go up in height because there's that other fence to allow us to clean underneath, is what she said she can figure it out, and the height won't go against the zoning and all that stuff.
To maintain the,
To maintain the weeds or whatever you say, the growth of any grass or weeds or anything like that.
Very good, I appreciate it. And one note I just want to make for the petitioner and for a reminder to the board is that for better or for worse, it's not really our responsibility to govern the building permit process. So if there was no permit in place and the item is up or item is down, we look at it relative to the property. So obviously, it sounds like you probably want to be in touch with Mr. Box in the building department, make sure everything is filed correctly. But for us this evening, it for better or for worse, it doesn't really affect what we're looking at tonight. So just want to make a note of that. With that said, any questions from the board to the applicants?
I have one if I
Go ahead,
could.
Mr. DeCoster.
Mr. Box explained about our process, and we look at practical difficulty. Is there something unique to your property that would allow us to consider the variance? You'll have to explain that. Something unique to the property. I understand the reasoning why you want it, but is there something unique to the property that would be considered a practical difficulty?
So one of the things, the 3.5 feet, if we have to come off the 3.5 feet, we do have sprinkler heads that would have to be moved. I'm not sure if that falls under there, but that is an additional cost we would have to do to move those in. They aren't I don't know the right word, but these,
rotating.
yeah, but they're more of the sprayers, but there are 4 of them back there. And that comes in, it's probably right at 3 or the 3.5, so either way they would have to come in. But that would be mainly our one thing. Yeah, I think that would probably be it on that part.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? And just to follow up on that, to echo what Mr. DeCoster said, our job here, similar to the fact that we don't look at a permit, is we don't necessarily look at this whether we like it or dislike it. That's not really our standard. Our standard is, can we find a practical difficulty? There can be a lot of conversation on what a practical difficulty means, but basically, as Mr. DeCoster indicated, we are looking for something unique about the parcel that would justify this. So as we're going through this, that's where questions are going to come from. And if we vote in the affirmative, it's because we feel that we found one. And if we vote in the negative, it feels because we feel we don't find one. It doesn't really have to do with necessarily the practical application of what you're trying to use it for. So just as long as we're on the same page.
Okay.
With that, I am going to, without any objection, open this up to the public. We only have one member of the public this evening. I happen to know who she is. Did you wish to speak tonight in our public portion? All right. Seeing that there is no public comment wanted, and without objection, I'm going to close the public portion and bring it back to the board for any comments, questions, or motions. If we make a motion, Mr. Box and Mr. Aloya, I'm assuming since there is separate requirements that whether we are voting in affirmative or not, we should reference the 3 standards, I'm assuming, which I had it as the typical practical difficulty. Are there special circumstances that would deprive the owner of the ability to use? Is it necessary for substantial enjoyment of the property to the zoning, and then that it would not be injurious to others, roughly speaking? We should address all 3 of those in any motion, is that correct?
Well, I think if you grant the variance, you have to state that there is a practical difficulty and why, and then state why they meet each of those factors. I think if you find there is no practical difficulty or they don't meet any one of the other factors, then you can deny it based on
We would
that.
just say that they would not meet the factors and not necessarily
Yeah,
go further.
you, right, you could say that there's no practical difficulty and I find that the variance is not necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of substantial right. You could cite one of those. I think that would be sufficient in
Okay.
addition to the practical difficulty.
All right, very good. Just want to make sure, since we are going out of the code of ordinance as opposed to the zoning ordinance, that we didn't have any additional requirements there. All right, back to the board. Comments, questions, or motions?
I think, I made the comments I had issue about the practical difficulty. I mean, I can certainly make a motion. At this point, I don't see the practical difficulty in this one. Like I said, I understand where you're coming from and the want for it, but as what we look for, I don't see a practical difficulty here. I'm happy to make a motion if anybody else has any comments.
I think you're free to make a motion,
Okay.
Mr. Coster.
Then I will make a motion to deny the variance request from section 14-29, citing that I do not see a practical difficulty based on this request. And then, did you say you want me to reference something else, or is just the fact that I'm not finding the practical difficulty enough?
I think if you don't find a practical difficulty, that's sufficient to defeat the request.
But again, deny the variance request because of lack of practical difficulty.
All right, motion by Mr. Coster. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Supported by Mr. Mazzara. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mr. DeBruin, please call the roll.
Mr. DeCoster?
Yes.
Mr. DeBruin is a yes. Mr. Tuckfield?
Yes.
Mr. Piper?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzara?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, that motion passes and the variance is denied. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us on to item 9, which is public comments. Once again, we only have one member of the public in the audience. Do you wish to speak, ma'am? Okay, just checking, just checking. All right. Moving us on to item 10, which is ZBA member comments. Anybody from the board have a comment this evening? All right, hearing none, going on to the planning director comments. Mr. Box, anything for you?
Yeah, I have a couple. First of all, I mentioned several times throughout the past several months that our neighboring city of Sterling Heights is going through the master plan update process. Happy to report they have adopted a new master plan, so it's available on their website if anybody wishes to see that. Another item, the county, Macomb County Health and Community Services is going through a study on housing in Macomb County. There have been a number of meetings, a series of public engagement. I know Melissa, before she left, attended a few on behalf of Macomb Township. I attended one myself. Their next round of public engagement, they're looking for folks to come and share their stories, their concerns, and their ideas on housing and how they might address housing needs within the county. They have a series of 3 meetings throughout the county. Tuesday, July 15th on Morton Street in Romeo. They have one on Wednesday, July 16th from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. At the Sterling Heights Senior Center in Sterling Heights. And Thursday, July 17th from 12:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. In Roseville at the Recreation Authority of Roseville in East Point. It's on Sycamore Street. And they would like us to just pass that information on, so anybody who is interested can attend those meetings. And then lastly, I do not believe we have any applications for a ZBA meeting next month. They probably still have a few days to get one in and make that agenda, but at this point, I would guess that we're probably not going to have a ZBA meeting next month.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Box. That takes us to item 12. Mr. Loy, any comments?
No, just happy 4th of July. Thank you for Mr. Box for setting this agenda item on the day before the 4th of July instead of next month. Much appreciated.
All right, that moves us on to item 13. Is there any motions to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Piper, is there support?
Support it. Supported
Supported by Mr. Mazzara. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying nay. At 6:49, we stand adjourned.